This was the opening move of Magnus Carlsen against the Prince of Fashion Alireza Firouzja. Now it's known as the Van Geet opening and Jean-Claude Van Damme it's rare. Alireza played it one time in Tartar Steel against Nepo. Look at his face when he saw it on the board here. What's Magnus got planned? Well, after d5 from Alireza, d4, this one, he essays a Jobava London system. This is the Croatia Rapid and Blitz tournament. It's day 5, Blitz tournament, round 11, and Magnus is chasing his title dreams once more. Alireza middle of the pack or so. Let's see how this one plays out. They get 5 minutes each, plus 2 seconds a move, and would you look at that? Magnus playing like every 8-year-old up and down the country at those school chess tournaments, but Alireza spots it. He fires the check at Magnus like many top pros do. Now he drops the bishop back, covering the pawn there, and Magnus sets up the party hat pawn formation. He's having a great time. Would you look at him there? Castles is played, the knight develops, this one enters the game also. Both players making horsey noises, great etiquette, and this is sneaky. You could start with this pawn push, but Magnus goes with this one. Now threatening to push the b pawn and trap this bishop, and the game gets razor sharp here because pawn a6 is played to kick back the pony. Does Magnus retreat? No, he doesn't. He plays this one before you can say crazy Uncle Kramnik, and it really gets tactical. Now in the game, Alireza does take here. It gives Magnus this opportunity to take the bishop immediately. He doesn't do it. You can do it. It's just a different game, slightly different structure. But instead, he plays the far cooler pawn takes on b5. And the idea is, if you move the bishop, you lose the rook down in the corner. But that's exactly what Alireza does. It gets the brilliancy. He's hanging an entire rook. Magnus didn't take it. Why didn't he do so? Well, then you can take here with check. King e2, knight e4 here, and actually black stands a bit better. Tons of compensation for being an exchange down. You know, you do have a knight for a rook as well as an extra pawn, I think, if I've counted correctly. Really interesting game. King stuck in the center. So we run back. Magnus says, no, sorry, you're not having all the fun. He sets up these bouncing bombs on the b file. Now we see takes. Queen recaptures and the knight rotates, eyeing the weakened square, preparing to develop. Magnus does so with his own bishop. Bishop d7 played. Sure, you can invade, but the queen actually slides over, even forces the exchange of the queens, and that's good for black. So Magnus instead centralizes. You could tuck back with the bishop just to retain it, but to what end? It gets pretty passive. Yes, you could try a bit of this and f6, but it's not the best. This is a far stronger move, more active, energetic. Alireza a top blitz player, and now in response we see castle simply from Magnus, and I was wondering, could you get away with something like g5? You know, try and pick up that bishop pair. Well, yes, technically, but you have really weakened the king. Probably not worth it in this position. So Alireza jumps backwards with the knight, hits this pawn here, which is doubled and weak. It's attacked twice, and how to defend? I mean, queen a5 gets pretty passive, so Magnus slides over, goes for the counterattack. h6 is played now, and knight takes on d7. Queen recaptures, is met by queen to d1, going for an attack, abandoning that pawn. I always hear that prologue in my head from the Lord of the Rings. It abandoned Gollum. Talking about the ring, of course, when it leaves Gollum, right? This is what's happening here. Poor Gollum, or Bollum, let's rename it. That one's abandoned, but Alireza doesn't yet actually take it. Instead, he prefers to activate the rook. It is a great move. He stands marginally better here. Does make some sense with these knights hopping so powerfully. Some very juicy outposts. And now queen g4 starts the counterattack. X-rays the king, and it's not so easy to fight against this here. We're going to stick with the game. f5 played by Alireza. The queen enters the position. Alireza played this, by the way, because now he laterally defends. And with this h pawn under fire, he first starts with this rook invasion. Now, because he hits the bishop, you don't have time to actually take. You know, you're not threatening mate, the queen covers, so you would be losing a piece. Magnus therefore saves it. Rook a2, insistent from Alireza, the king of fashion. He's strutting his stuff right now. So Magnus saves that second bishop. And it begs the question, how to fight against this threat of bishop takes. You know, what if you sidestep with the king? Quick look at that. Well, then there's this secondary idea. Now, if you take with the queen to keep the pawn structure in pawn structure intact, there's a hard sentence to say, then you get checkmated. And if instead you take with the pawn here, well, now there's these nice ideas, ripping open the light squares, this sort of thing. Horrible structure for black soon to come. So we didn't see this king sidestepping here. This is a problem. What if this one? Similar ideas. And now actually, instead of taking straight away, there's this very powerful g4 idea. You know, here's one idea. The board starts opening up for the bishops. And once that happens, they outplay the knights. So none of this, none of this. We instead saw this. Best move. Fair play, Alireza. What a player. It allows this crash through, which is why we digressed there. And now the knight enters. Great counterattack. The rook saves, hits the open file, or half open file, I should say. This knight now bounces back, and it prepares to crash through on f2 there. And I love how Magnus plays. If you ever wanted to know why he's such a good blitz player, well, here's a real insight into one reason why he's so tricky. Top move is pawn f3, but not only is it slightly weakening, it isn't as tricky. What does Magnus do? He plays second top move, pawn b6. Now, if you crash through at this moment with either piece, well, now the rook's crashing through. You got big problems on g7. So takes, forced, basically. Bishop f4 is Magnus's point now. And if you take this pawn on f2 with either piece, you know, let's imagine rook takes, for example. We'll look at that one, shooting to the heavens, because this is the tactical shot. And after the queen takes back, then you hit the back rank here, and you're just checkmating. Like this, like this, like this. And if we run back here, you had to take back with the queen, or else be a piece down, because if you took with the knight, this one drops. Same issues, of course, whether you'd taken with the knight here. Then you leave the back rank. So this is what Magnus sets up. Alireza does not touch the pawn, therefore. He spawns the seahorse. Great move, intercepting the rook, coming away from the attack. Again, you could play f3, but Magnus bounces back. Covers like this. Alireza decides to jump back with the knight, go for this bishop here, bishop e5 from Magnus, and takes. The players are on instinct at this point, so low on time. Magnus has given back a ton of clock time here. Pawn b5 played, and when I was watching this live, I really felt that Alireza was getting the better of it now, especially with the clock times and the knight jumping. Never fun in blitz, completely cemented. h3 played, gives a bit of Lufthansa, maybe threatens to crank open the light squares one day, and queen f7 now offers the exchange, declined by Magnus. Normally he loves to get them off the board, but not here. Rook a4 goes for the pawn, defended. Rook a8 backwards, doing a defensive maneuver. King h2, rook a2 goes for that f pawn, and Magnus now drops back with the queen. But watch this. Just when you think it might be white's king that comes under fire, we see check, king g8, and Magnus starts turning the tables with some tricky stuff. He first plays rook c1 here. Queen g6. Don't push your f-pawn now. You're going to get mated in one. That wouldn't be pleasant. Takes, check is played, sorry. King h7. Queen e7. Back with the king. Check. Back with the king. Are we going to see a threefold? No, sorry. We know the Global Chess Committee does not love a threefold. They want to see bloodshed. They've asked for it. So Magnus plays the awesome Rook G1. Now you might say, epic cheese, what's so great about that? Have you had too much of the crumbly stuff, gone insane? That's cheese, by the way, crumbly cheese. Please don't get carried away. Well, no. The reason I think this move's so good in Blitz is because it's so random and weird, but it sets a trap. Because if takes, then there's this double attack. What time would that be? 12, call that a 7. We'll call it a 7 o'clock attack. Beautiful. And that would be the end of the game. And it's happened to strong players, right? They fall for these traps low on time. Alireza doesn't. He plays Rook C2. Magnus now plays Rook A1. And this is the beauty of his chess, right? Again, he's hanging a pawn. Sorry, there's a mosquito flying around. Really ought to take a shower, clearly. And here, if you take the pawn, you're running into the tactics, but also you've now got threats to deal with. There's the slow motion attacking idea of bringing the rook and mating the king. How to fight against it. You've got 4 seconds. 3, 2, 1. This is how tough it is at the top level, right? There's one move here for Alireza to hold the balance of the game. Can you find it? So very well done. If the idea came to you of attacking this king so often the way in Blitz, and it's the incredible knight takes on e3. Point being, if captures, you mate, so you can't do that. If you don't capture, well, actually, then you're getting fried, because this is also a checkmating threat. No good moving the g-pawn, you know, you crash through. It's all horrendous. Basically, you have to now do a perpetual check, make the draw, and that's how the game would need to end at this point if Alireza had found this move. He didn't. We exit the back cave, come back another day. What does he play? Knight takes on e5. Now, in fairness to him, when he took on e5, he was low on time, also distracted. Just at this moment, Terence had walked in, long-time friend of Magnus. He had a beautiful picnic with him, cheese sandwiches that he enjoyed on the grass outside with Magnus and Ella. Magnus, of course, squinting away. Many chess players do when they haven't touched grass in a while. The sun is shining. It's Croatia. Really understandable, because that's a key defender of the white king and an attacker of the black king. Whoops, that's a drunken arrow. Meant to be like this. But regardless, Queen h6 was played to give the king some space. You know, we know this is coming. Played, but there's a problem. Even though Alireza can now take, no check, no worries, Magnus can now check here, drive the king out from its cubby hole, getting flushed out like poop from the Seine in readiness for the Olympics. It was a major operation, very smelly. The king hits h5, and now Alireza burns, because queen takes on h6 is played, and it's the end of the game. Because if you now take back, not played, well, the pawn runs. Runs. You can't stop it. That's the game. If you try and get over with the king, it runs. That's the game. So this is how it ended. Resigns in this position. 46 moves. Great back and forth battle from these guys. And of course, Magnus went on to win the tournament. Hope you enjoyed this one. And in case you missed the game of 2025 so far, Richie Rapport's Immortal, check out this King's Indian Defense game on screen. And I hope to see you again soon. Cheers.